Good morning, afternoon, everyone. Oh gosh, we're March 8 today. So I'll wait for a few people to jump on board. We've got our first monthly event today, and all around fussy eating. What a good one. This has come through a lot. This is a question that I get a lot through different programs and the clients that I have. So I thought, why not touch on this one? Because there's a few really, really simple ways that we can tackle this, that we can make mealtime a whole lot easier, where nobody gets stressed, there's no overwhelm, everyone leaves the dinner table happy instead of absolutely overwhelmed, cranky, reactive, angry, losing their marbles and just wanting to send the kids to bed because it's been too hard. So there's a couple of really simple ways. So if you're jumping on, hey Brittany, welcome, great to see you. Let me know who's there. Let me know if you've got questions throughout this too. Let me know what mealtime is like for you, by the way. What's it like? I'm just going to put my headphones in here so it doesn't. So hopefully you can hear me. You should be able to hear me. Let me know if you can't. So let's do it. This is going to be short, sharp, and sweet. I want to make this as easy and as simple as possible. So if you're watching, let me know what mealtime is like for you. What is it like? Is it stressful? Is it chaotic? Is it easy? Is it annoying? Is it a nightmare? Do people get annoyed? What is it like in your home? The more people that share about what it's like, the more we can normalize some of the complexities that happen around mealtime, because it's not always just about the meals. It's not always just about the meals. There's usually so much else going on. And I'll touch on this in a second, but let me know what goes on for you. So I'll just get the slides up here for you. So usually what I hear is, what's the fussiness? So usually it's around the types of food, the colors of the food, the textures. It can be the timings of day that the meals are given to. Usually they're not sitting still at the dinner table. They're not eating the entire meal. Sometimes it's all around the sugar addictions and they're not being happy with the meal. They just want some sugary treat that's in the cupboard that they know is there. So these are some of the things that I get told a lot. So if this is some of yours, if this is what you get, then let us know. What is it that you get to hear or see? So let me just want to make sure that I see any of your comments here. So refuses to eat most dinners, Brittany. Okay, got it. Throws her food away and screams, wow. Okay, Brittany, can you tell me how old your daughter is, by the way? So let's just demystify and demyth and actually make this so freaking simple, because mealtime is one of the things that just throws the whole day, the whole nighttime routine out of whack for some of you, most of you, a lot of you. And it doesn't need to be this way. So what can we actually do about it? First, and this, you might laugh at this, Brittany, but for those of you who have got children where, they just don't eat anything, they're so fussy, they won't eat anything that I put on their plate, and we get worried that they're going to, not only about the nutrients, but that they're going to starve themselves and, well, that ultimately leads to something, doesn't it? If they're not getting their food and intake. But so I remember speaking to a nutritionist once, a clinical nutritionist, and she comes into my programs when I hold them for the groups of parents when we're talking about Food Week and epigenetics and biology and the meal requirements, the food requirements. And she said to me,
I haven't known a child yet to starve themselves to death. And when she said that, a lot of the parents on the call just had a little chuckle to themselves. There was these little grins of, that is true. Okay, all right. Because I think that over the time, over the years, over the months where there's this constant fear around fussiness, the fear starts to creep on in, and we don't realize where the fear is coming from. Ultimately, it comes from this, the fear of death, or the fear of them being deficient, nutrient deficient. But one thing we've got to remember, and this just helps to bring it back to something normal, they're not going to starve themselves to death. So let's remove some of the pressure off completely. Let's remove some of the pressure off, all of the pressure, and let's get back to basics. So what are the most simple changes that you can make for the absolute biggest results possible? And they're the only ones that I'm going to touch on today. These are the ones over the last 10 years that I've seen make the biggest difference possible in families and with children. And the first one is, what are the beliefs around mealtime? Usually when I have a chat with parents around mealtime and the stress that it creates and their expectations around what it needs to look like, it's from their own childhood. It's from their own belief systems, or what they've been conditioned to believe is right and wrong from their own parents at mealtime. So is it that you were in trouble if you didn't eat everything on your plate? Was it that you were in trouble if you didn't sit still at the dinner table? Was it that you were in trouble if you had your elbows on the table? Was it that you were in trouble if you didn't eat everything on your plate? What was it for you and your family? And how is this impacting your expectations around dinner time? Because all this does is create stress for you and for your kids. And some of that stress could very well be impacting their appetite, their actual desire to want to eat. Because if there's this constant stress around mealtime, if they expect the stress around mealtime, their body goes into stress mode even before they get to that dinner table. And what happens when we're stressed? Well, we get rushed and flushed with those stress hormones, adrenaline, cortisol, and that absolutely shuts off your digestion and your appetite. It brings on anxiousness. So let's take all of the pressure off and all of the expectations off. And how are your belief systems, the ones that you've been conditioned to believe from your own childhood, impacting the here and now? Let me know in the comments, what were you made to believe was right and wrong around mealtime? I know for me, it was eat everything at the dinner table, and my dad would not let us leave the dinner table unless we ate everything on that plate. That was a rule. I mean, I remember being there, and I remember my brother being there even after the light switches were turned off. Light switches were off. And we're sitting there, and I'm pretty sure my mum has a photo of my sister, and she's asleep at the table because she's fallen asleep because she's just been there for so long. But she's eaten what she needed to eat. But there's this expectation that it must be eaten. So, Brittany, you've got one, no talking at the dinner table. Interesting. That's interesting, because there are certain children, depending on their epigenetic health types, where dinner time is more of a social event than just eating the meal. Dinner time, meal time, being around with your family is more of a connection event rather than a food event. And if we deny one of those needs, sometimes they're not getting that connection time met. And I wonder how it was for you, Brittany. I'd be interested to know. So what are your beliefs around mealtime, and which ones can you just throw out the window so that this stress can disappear? As I said, if mealtime equals stress, you can almost guarantee that they're not going to eat anyway. And then it's just ruined the whole evening. So what is one thing that you could throw out the window today? Even though it'll feel uncomfortable, it's not going to feel comfortable. When we change our belief systems, or we change our behavioral patterns as adults, it's really difficult. So what's one thing that you could throw out today? Yeah, Brittany, you didn't want to eat dinner. It's interesting, isn't it? What we think we're doing to make sure our kids eat dinner could very well be the thing that's having them not eat. So this is where we get to experiment. I speak a lot about the behavioral pendulum. So if you're up here, and let's just say, Brittany, your example of your parents not allowing you to talk at the dinner table, that's this end of the pendulum. If they swung their behavior over here and decided one night, you know what, I'm going to throw that rule out the window. Let's see what happens when we give the kids at the dinner table free rein. They might just eat their food. So let's experiment with the other end of the pendulum. And it will feel uncomfortable because we're breaking a behavior pattern that's been set up by this ingrained conditioned belief by your own childhood, because it doesn't serve anybody. And usually, if you asked yourself seriously what the purpose is for that rule or any rule that you have at dinner time, usually it's built on mud. Usually the rules have no substance. It's just what somebody else does, and we think that they're doing the right thing, or we've been told by a podcast that's what a good parent does. You know, this perceived perception on what good parenting is at dinner time or meal time. It's usually rubbish, absolutely rubbish. So that's the first way. I'd really question where your conditioned beliefs are coming from around mealtime. The second thing is, and this is more of a practical thing for you to try. So when I've been in coaching sessions around meal times with the nutritionists and the practitioners that I partner with, this is probably the most successful experiment you can do with your kids if there's this real aversion to eating, if they don't eat much or they don't eat anything. So platter style meals I've seen work 98% of the time when we've got this real chaotic environment around mealtime. When you can have the food in the middle of the table and it's just platter style and the kids can just take what they want from the middle of the table, they will eat far more. Now, the reason that the psychological reason behind this is because they're getting choice. They actually feel in control, where usually mealtime or dinner time, there's really no control for them. And when children feel disempowered or when they feel like they're lacking control, usually they become resistant to whatever the expectations are in front of them, regardless if it serves them or not, or if they even want to do it. So play with that. Do some platter style meals. Have mealtime look a little different. Maybe they can decide what's on this end of the platter, what's on that end of the platter. Just have it a bit more fun, a bit more picnic-like, and you will be blown away at what changes that'll make around mealtime and how much they eat. And you can even have this around the kitchen during the day too, just little plates of things set up around different stations. And that really helps to get different types of food into them, because they have ultimate control when they have it or what they're choosing. The next one is take the pressure off. So this is mainly for those of you who have kids that are only really interested in eating one type of food right now. I've had parents where they've told me my children only want to eat white food. They'll only eat rice. They'll only eat white bread. They'll only eat, what else is white? White pasta, no sauce, but just pasta. And they're so concerned, obviously, about the nutrients not being in there. But right now, if you've had stress during mealtime for an extended period of time, absolutely remove all of the expectations, and you will find that by letting it be, by just providing that white food or that one food that they like, and maybe having some platter style options in the middle, you'll find that when you stop putting the pressure on, they will naturally start trying the new things in the middle of the table or being more open to experimenting with new things. So take the pressure off. I've not seen yet a child stick to that one food. Haven't seen it. It always evolves. And we've got things to consider, like we've got taste bud changes that happen as well. There might be the textures, but again, the taste buds change. So maybe they're okay in a few months' time. It doesn't remain that way for long. However, when there's force or expectation, that's when you'll extend out that behavior. That's when it lasts a whole lot longer. So if you want it to alter, take the pressure off. And the next thing. So, and let me know if this is making sense to you. Let me know if you tried these things or which one you're going to try. So I want to give you the best hack that I've heard so far about hiding veggies in food. The best hack. Now we've all heard, blending up into maybe a pasta sauce. Excellent, great, give that a go. But I often hear that, oh, my kid's just a bit too clever for that. They can see the color change. Now this is to help those of you who have tried it and your children say, no, it looks different, or I can smell something different. They're very in tune. They're very in tune. So the best trick that I've heard, and again, this is from one of the nutritionists that I partner with, what she will do is she will suggest to parents to blend up smoothies. And you're probably like, oh, I've tried that, just doesn't work. Well, here's the extra tip. Because they are so focused on what they see and what they smell, what she does that makes all the difference is she maybe get a really cool smoothie cup. Have your kids choose it. Have your kids design it maybe, but have them pick it. And then you put the smoothie in there. Now, the important thing is that the smoothie container or the bottle, could be a water bottle too, needs to be completely, you can't see through it. So it needs to be solid in color. So they're not allowed to see through it, and it needs to be closed in at the top with a straw, because this takes away those two factors. They can't see the murky color maybe, right? As soon as you add spinach to something, doesn't it just go, it's not pretty. It's not pretty. Even adults turn their noses up. So as soon as we add all of these veggies, we get this brown or, murky color. And we also get a certain smell. So having the straw takes away the smell, and having the solid color on the outside completely takes away from the color and the looking at it. So try that trick. It's probably the best trick that I've seen so far in how it works. I've had a lot of parents try this and it really works well. So as long as you can get, one of their favorite flavors dominant in there, but throw in some other nutrients, even if it's powders or it's veggies or it's spinach or it's other fruits, then you're going to find that it's going to work. And the last one is experiment. What do I mean by this? So sometimes as parents, you quite often get caught up in the routine of things, because there's a lot to consider, and really you just want something to be routine based and nice and easy. However, when we get stuck in these routines and they're not working, we're not exactly sure what to try to change it. So usually what I go through with parents, and when we know the epigenetic health type, it's quite easy, because sometimes we need to experiment with the timings of day that they eat. So sometimes there are certain kids where breakfast is they're not interested in it. Absolutely not interested, because their body doesn't desire food in the mornings, and there's a biological reason for that. Some kids want their dinners later. Some kids want their dinners earlier. Some kids want more snacks through the day than big meals. Some kids need a bigger lunch than a dinner. Some kids need a smaller dinner and a bigger breakfast. So it can range. So experiment, start trying new things, and something will shift. Something will make all of the difference. So you can experiment with the timings of day. You can experiment with the different textures. You can experiment with your expectations at the dinner table. You can experiment with allowing them to move if they need to move at the dinner table. This is a big one, huge. As soon as we take the pressure off around this moving business around a dinner table, it's a game changer. There are some kids that just require it. They require the movement. And if they don't move, they're going to be, again, resistant to the food. Their body doesn't want the food, and they certainly don't want to be doing what you tell them to do in those moments either. So that can really be connected to our conditioned beliefs around what dinner time needs to look at. Sit still, don't move, and eat your dinner. That's the task at hand. Get it done so we can move on to the next bedtime routine task. But there are some children that absolutely require movement, absolutely require it. So experiment with it. Don't be afraid to lean into a bit of that more flexible nature around dinner time, where you think that if you lean into it, all chaos is going to break loose. It's not necessarily what's going to happen. There are some children where if you allow them the moving, hey Sandra, welcome. Hey Manu, nice to see you. If you allow them the movement, they'll be more on board. So don't allow external expectations or the past expectations to impact what your child actually needs in that moment and what's going to release all of the stress around mealtime. Don't allow all of that external stuff to impact what you and your kids need for it to be a smooth sailing process. So try some of this. Take the pressure off. Gosh, there's a lot of pressure. It will change. It will evolve. They will try new foods when you take the pressure off and they feel like they have control. And it doesn't need to look a certain way at mealtime. Lean into a different technique or a different expectation and see what happens for you all. So I hope that's been helpful in some way. Let me know what you got from that, or what was helpful, or what really got you thinking about mealtime for you. And try one of the things and let me know what works, what worked, what do you need to think about differently to see some changes and have mealtime just a whole lot easier. We complicate so many things as adults. We really do. It just doesn't need to be that complicated, especially for you and your kids. And when mealtime can be a time for connection and a time for fun and a time for loving conversation. That is what's more important. That's what's more important, because they're not going to starve themselves to death. They're just not. They're not. So I hope you enjoyed it. This is number 1 for March. We've got a guest speaker coming in a couple of weeks. I know that you'll love her. And then we've got a really great challenge at the end of the month too, with just the biggest and best information and tools and tips that I could possibly give you, plus the biggest, best giveaway that I've ever done. So make sure that you come along to that, but I'll be letting you know more details about that too. So bye for now, everyone. Hope you've had a good week. And for those of you who have at all been impacted by what's going on over the last couple of weeks, I send you a whole lot of love and all of the energy that I can. I hope that you've got some support around you, and I'm really thinking of you all. There's a lot of people that's been impacted, a lot of people I know as well. And I really hope that you're doing okay, but really am thinking of you all. So bye for now, everybody. Bye.